Thank you for coming to hang out with us. This is Gain and Glow, a happy lifestyle podcast with me, Vanessa.
And me, Crystal.
Oh, hello.
Hi.
You want to go ahead and start us off with that dope quote?
Yes, I do. So today's dope quote is from Aristotle. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit.
Which is incredibly true, and something I know we've talked about probably a million times is like creating habits and all of that jazz. But today we're going to dive specifically into persistence, because it is only through persistence that we actually develop these habits. I think we've brought it up before. What do they say? It takes like 21 days of doing something consistently, no matter what, in order for it to become a habit. And the only way we get to the other side of those habits and our goals and whatever we're working towards is through persistence. So today we're going to chat a little bit about persistence.
Yeah, and I thought it's kind of funny because we're looking at quotes and Aristotle came up and Wikipedia referred to him as a polymath, and I didn't know what that was. And it's basically somebody who is very knowledgeable in a substantial number of subjects. And I was like, well, substantial is more than a few. And then I went and looked at his list, and there's a ton of things like physics, biology, economics, politics, geology, music. It goes on. And I think about it, and I was like, well, to know somebody, to be able to refer to somebody who lived so long ago, they must have been pretty impressive. And he obviously had a lot of knowledge. And it's so funny, too, because I always think, like, we're always in the pursuit of knowledge. Always. I don't even think we always recognize it. And I feel like nowadays, too, everyone has a cell phone. Most people do. So they can just look at the internet whenever they want to look up anything. Like, now we don't even have to think twice. We don't have to call up, like, our grandma and be like, how do you sew a button on a shirt? Like, there's a million people on YouTube sharing that information. So I think it's so cool that we have such a big span of reach to so many people that we would have never met, like especially like back in that time, like BC era. Like, you didn't know people outside of your town unless you got to travel, or unless other people traveled to you.
Yeah, it's true. It's super impressive to think, like, he was so skilled in so many different areas, and it was so important and so integral to, like, teaching and spreading all of that knowledge that it's lasted through so many centuries, hundreds of years. We still know Aristotle from, what did you say, it was like BC time?
Yeah. Back in the 300 BC range.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm like, wow. And I think it's so funny. And I feel like we always get caught up in the comparison game, like through, even through like, Facebook and Instagram and stuff. You see what everyone else is doing all the time. So now you almost feel a little inadequate. I know I do sometimes, but I've learned that we need to be focusing more on what it is that we want specifically for ourselves, so we can be the best versions of ourselves and present that to the world. And then that's how people are going to remember you. And this might have just been from, oh my gosh, Fight Club. This might have been from Fight Club, but it was like, you are who you pretend to be. Like, so it's, which is so funny. I think about that a lot. And I can't even believe that just over a year ago, we decided to start this podcast together, and we successfully kept going for a year, even though we had some breaks in recording, and we ended up making a website. And just before we started recording, Vanessa told me that we had over 70 downloads this month, which is like the most we've ever had, and I'm so blown away. And I'm just, it's so funny because I feel like we just hit over 100 followers on Instagram, and like through our powers combined on Facebook with our our friends and family that caught constant notifications that we invited them to like our page. We have over 100 followers there as well. And it's so interesting because I don't even feel like we don't have that much interaction with the people who listen or follow us. But to know that like that many people are out there and supporting us and checking back in and, you know, downloading or liking something that we shared, it's so amazing to me. I didn't think we would be here at this point. I didn't know what a year would look like after we started. I didn't even know if we would make it a year. So I'm like a little blown away.
Yeah.
Very, very appreciative, very excited. It like totally motivates me to keep going.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it's funny when we talk about persistence. Like, really, when you think about persistence, it's really getting through all of the tough things that come up and reaching the other end of your goals or whatever. And the fact that we were able to reach our goal and make it as far as we have, it's a testament to the persistence that we've had as a team and as a podcast, really with the goal of spreading more awareness on certain issues and knowledge and hoping that we can empower other people to live happy, healthy lifestyles with balance and utilizing what they have. And really just persisting through all of the challenges we've experienced and the roadblocks is what's gotten us to this point. And it's feelings like this and moments like when we jump on a call together and we share these milestones. It's moments like that really, they help me remember the next time we have an obstacle, how to persist through that and then just keep it going. And finding ways to keep that momentum is one of the secrets to success, really, I can say honestly, for me. And I have a feeling it could be for other people too. But it's such an important piece of it. And it's so fun when we get to take something like what we have and what we've created, which is our little baby and hobby and kind of thing that we've invested all this time into and see these goals and know that it's a testament to persistence. And so it helps really share that message and hopefully empower other people to, if you're thinking about starting that podcast or if you're thinking about writing that book or budgeting your money better or paying off debt, you can do it. Just think about how you're going to feel once you get there. Just remember through all of the tough times how it feels once you're on the other end of that. Like budgeting, I know you've got so many different goals around budgeting and have had to persist through so many challenges to reach them.
Yeah. It's before, I mean, I know I've talked about it a little bit, but when I hired a personal trainer, gosh, I was like, that's what I was racing a couple years ago, because 2020, I definitely wasn't in the gym. I put that guy on a credit card because I just felt like it was just something I needed to do to invest in myself to kind of get myself going, and I couldn't afford him, and he straight went on a credit card every month, and then I just paid a little bit. And so after I was done with his services, I was trying to figure out how am I going to pay this off. And so I started kind of doing this being in accounting. I just opened an Excel spreadsheet and I put all my bills up there for the month, and then like what I spend on like groceries and gas and stuff like that. And I was trying to look at it for the whole month at once. So like my income's this much, my whole month's expenses this much, and I wasn't getting very far, and I was kind of disappointed. And then when I broke it out between paychecks, I saw that like I could see very clearly how much money I had left over, and then I would see where it was going. So it's like breaking it up into that 2 weeks really helped visualize, like helped me see where my money was going, because I didn't realize it, but I wasn't part of it was I wasn't logging everything extra that I spent, but then I go and look at my bank account and it's like, oh, you're less than what you need for your bills, so now you got to use money from savings and stuff like that. And then I'm like, well, that doesn't help me pay off my credit cards. But when I broke it out into that 2-week, like, per paycheck thing, that really got my focus more narrowed down, and I would see, this is exactly what you have left. So keep an eye on it, try not to spend anything, and then at the end of that period, you know, you still have money in your bank account, and then when you get your next check, make that payment of the money you had left as an extra payment to your credit card, so you're not getting an overdraft fee in case that happens. I mean, overdraft fees make me so mad, especially if you have a savings account connected too, and then they're like, oh, don't worry, we moved the money over from savings for you for a fee. Which I'm just like, oh my gosh, I had the money, and because I wasn't as mindful of where my money was going, that's how banks make money. Like, that's how credit cards make money. They're like, we charge you interest when you don't pay it back in full. And so I kind of followed Dave Ramsey's snowball method of paying the lowest balance first, no matter what the interest rate is, which, oh, let me tell you, you look at the interest rate on some of those things and you go, well, I want to pay the biggest one because it's charging me the most interest each month. But the mental accomplishment of paying off a small amount and then it's gone helped motivate me to cancel the next thing and the next thing. And so I had a list and I would just cross it out, and then I could see, yeah, I am making progress no matter how slow. And I'm super excited because even though last year was rough and like my husband wasn't working a lot because the film industry wasn't really going a whole lot, like working from home, we did save some money. But with stimulus and other stuff, we were able to pay off one of his smaller student loans. And then our final credit card will be paid off next month, which is huge. Because I don't think I've paid off my credit cards, but mostly in an attempt to, like, move and then rely on them until I got settled. So I'm super excited for that accomplishment. And it's so funny, like, just like, you know, trying to pay down a balance and trying to lose weight, you just want to see those numbers go down. And I've kind of gotten to the point in my life where I'm like, I don't care how fast they're going down as long as they're going down. Because over time, like, all those little things add up.
It's so true. And it's funny because I think about all of the different little challenges I've had where really it's persistence. Just keep going forward towards the goal, keep moving forward. Obstacle, okay, leap that one. The next hurdle, we'll leap that one. And in the moment, it feels so complicated and so difficult sometimes. But then when you really do have that idea of, like you said, okay, as long as it's going down, that's what I'm going to concern myself with. So when you really pick and choose those battles and pick and choose how much you want to see happen and be realistic with that, it'll help. And then thinking about that final goal of, like with weight loss, 1 pound here, a half a pound there. I know I've recently been trying to lose weight. It's one of the things that I want to do. Like I've said, for my health, I get a little bit complicated when I talk about it because I don't want people to think that we're a weight loss podcast. But for me personally, I've been trying to lose a little weight and tone up and stuff. And some weeks I would lose probably half a pound. And then the next week I'd lose almost a pound, not quite there. And then the next week I'd lose like 2 ounces, which, let's be honest, that was like the difference of drinking water when I first got up or not. And over time, first initially, it doesn't feel like a lot. And so when I think where my goal is and how close I am to it or how quickly I'm getting there, sometimes it could be a little bit demotivating thinking, gosh, I'm not really getting there super fast. But then once you get through and you get towards the end and you just really stick with it and develop those habits and keep hitting that small number first or whatever you're doing, after a while, that little half ounce or that 1 pound here and there, it turns out to be like 15 pounds. And then that feeling is so much greater once we realize, okay, had we given up halfway through, had we not persisted through, we'd be, not there, halfway there, whatever it is. And recently, I finally got promoted at work, which was just a long time in the works. And it was one of those challenges that presented itself where a seemingly positive thing had a number of hurdles to get to the end goal, which was ultimately reaching my new position. And it wasn't made exactly easy for me to get there through time, mismanagement and things like that. But it was one of those times where I realized halfway, about midway through, I was like, maybe this is never going to happen. Maybe all of this work is for naught, and I'm just never going to get through this offboarding phase of what I'm doing now and reach the new stuff. And it was so incredibly demotivating to think like that. And I really had to tap into some of my commitment and really learn skills. One of them being just being persistent, just saying, you know what, I'm not going to give up for the mere fact that I'm not going to give up. Whether I actually succeed or not, whether I actually end up getting the promotion, whether I actually get to that point or not, I'm going to keep going forward just because I want to, because I need to, and because that's who I want to be. I want to be the person that is persistent, even if there's a chance I could fail. Because at the end of the day, at least I tried. And anytime you persist through a challenge, you've ultimately gained something. And that's a lot of what we talk about on this podcast, is what we can gain through these types of things. Yes, we can lose weight, and yes, we can lose debt, and yes, we can reach to, the other side of a promotion. But really, the most important part is what we've gained in that process. And the skill of being persistent is something that can be learned. We don't all just come out of the womb knowing how to persist through challenges. I mean, other than the birth canal, I guess, if you really want to get weird with it. But it's not something, we all inherently just have inside of us. Sometimes we have a flight response to certain types of challenges, and learning to be persistent through even the scarier things or the things that you would normally have that flight response to, that can be learned and honed like any other skill or habit. And it's something that once you can tap into it, you really will find success through a lot of your challenges, coupled with all of the other habits and aspects. But persistence being one of the most important ones, keeping that motivation, keeping that forward momentum, reaching those goals, and getting to where you want to be.
Definitely. It's so funny. Yeah, your promotion was absolutely well-deserved, and I'm so glad you finally got it, because but like in the two years that we've been working together, this time, you were doing a lot, not only to help our department, but then work with other departments, and which is huge. And so you've been proving yourself for a while, and so for you to finally have this opportunity at a very stressful time in the work world, really. And then to feel like you still might not get it because you're just in this interim. And I know it was really rough, and you stuck with it, and now you're on the other side. Now you're learning your new job, and you're already, working in this field with people who seem like they're supportive as well, and also want you to succeed, which is super exciting. Like, you cross the hump, and then there are people going, yay, we're happy you're here, and we're gonna, help you do what you need to do to help us, and we're all gonna work together. And it's like, that's kind of like the perfect work environment. Like that's what you could hope for, and in the best scenario, that people are gonna be happy to work with you. They want you to do well, they're available to help and teach and all that. And I think that's super great. And I'm so happy that you got it. You finally you worked through it. And it was so funny because you're just like, well, am I going to get it here? Am I going to get it somewhere else? Like, what's going to happen? Because I think for you, it was kind of non-negotiable that you were ready to, have a position that's more suitable for your skills, honestly. And then it's kind of funny because in that whole transition, I feel like I've been more assertive for myself in communication with my team so that we can help kind of with this transition, with, you leaving and then us like getting somebody new and everything. So it's funny that like you switching departments was such a big deal. Because honestly, I didn't think it was going to be such a big deal. But yeah, and I think about how if we get distracted or like we get caught up in our feelings of what's happening, like while it's happening, then it's a pretty easy deterrent to be like, I'm just not going to do this anymore. I'm just going to give up. Like, I just can't. It's just stressful. And it's like, well, you're either going to be stressed out and get there, or, not less stressed and then stay where you are until you realize you didn't want to be where you are. And then you get upset. Because I've done that cycle like my whole life. I'm like, okay, like I'm going to do this by this date. And then that date comes. And if you didn't do it, you spent a lot of time between now and that date going, nah, not today. No. Oh, not right now. And then you give yourself excuses, and then a month goes by and then you go, oh my gosh, I am right where I was a month ago. And I am not happy with that. And so I think we we have to set that. We have to be persistent in order for things to change. And if you want to be somewhere different than where you are now, you have to commit to some change. And change is always uncomfortable. And it's so funny because right now it's springtime, and springtime in Portland is like the roses are blooming. Like, honestly, everything's blooming. And my husband's allergies are out of control. I definitely made sure he was not in the room when we were recording because oh, poor guy's been sneezing all week. But when we go on walks in the neighborhood, I really take time to appreciate that the flowers are open and budding, because in a couple of weeks they won't be there. And for like the last 6 months they weren't there. But then it's just part of their life cycle. They'll grow and they'll bloom, and then they'll fall, and then people will prune them, and then they'll just look like thorny bushes for another 6 months until they go through it. But it's like, you enjoy a rose for the moment that it's beautiful, but the bush is always, it's still working. It's still going through a life cycle. And so I feel like we get really into the idea that change should be like, even if we're looking forward to change, that it should make us feel happy and that we should be like always excited. And that's not really the case. Like, you kind of go through a whole cycle of emotions. Like, I know, like, I've been kind of maintaining my weight for a while, but I still have weight I want to lose. So I'm starting to get in those habits more of being more mindful of what I'm eating, which I like to use MyFitnessPal because it just takes the guesswork out of how many calories I have. And sometimes, like, I choose not to track them if I just don't feel like it. But I know that when I'm more consistent with tracking it and seeing it, even if I do eat over my calories one day, I don't restrict really bad the next day. I just go back to the goal that I wanted, because it's interesting to think that, like, some people get very into the emotions or into the details of planning, but really, like, our bodies function differently on different days. Sometimes you're more tired. Sometimes you're more physical and you move around more and you need a little bit more calories. And some days you're just sitting all day and you don't need as many. And so even though, like, I felt like for a long time I had a disconnection between what my brain and my stomach were telling me about food. When I track it or I write it down, I can see pretty clearly like where I'm at for the day. And so when I'm more consistent in just hitting my calorie goal, no matter if I go over or under on other days, then that has given me the most consistent results. And that is, which is so nice at the end of the month when you do your weigh-in and you go, oh, it actually worked. Because throughout the month you might feel better some days, and some days, even though I've lost like over 60 pounds, I still feel like the person I was 60 pounds ago. I still feel that way, but it's really not. Like, you put a side-by-side picture and you can tell it's not, but our brains trick us. We get caught up in our emotions, and sometimes we tell ourselves it's not worth it to keep going, but it is. And sometimes, like, even with work, even with life. Like, you're not happy every day, even if the sun was shining all day and nobody called you on the phone and you were by yourself. Like, perfect example this weekend. I was super happy, pumped up yesterday. Today, total hermit. Like, did not want to do anything. And I feel like that's okay. We should allow ourselves to be able to relax and stuff. But when we get focused and drilled in on goals, I think sometimes it's hard to kind of take your emotion out of it, but then also stay consistent with like the actions you need to achieve the goal.
Yeah, and knowing that when it's not perfect or when you don't feel ideal, being able to just push through and keep going towards the goal. Keep practicing the habits even though you don't want to. Keep that consistency even though that day feels different than every other day. Sometimes when you have a long-term goal, sometimes when you're reaching something that's not immediate, you have lag time in between then and the success part. And knowing that going in is a really good way to prepare to move through it and stick with your plan, stick with your habits, stick with, keep your eye on the prize, as one would say. and through that drive, you can pretty much do anything you want to do within, physical and mental capabilities. And, obviously you can't defy the laws of physics or something crazy like that. But most goals can be achieved by fighting through those lulls, fighting through the potential tough spots, staying consistent, and like you said, not letting the emotions derail you either. Always stay the course even when you don't want to, and that becomes easier and easier and easier as you reach these goals and as you get to celebrate those wins and as you get to gain everything that you get from reaching those goals.
Absolutely. Either way, you learn. Like, you succeed or fail, you've learned.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you find your podcast to stay up to date with our new episodes every Wednesday.
Also, head on over and follow us on Facebook and Instagram and say hello while you're there. And don't forget to drink some water, take a deep breath. You've got this.